Hey guys, Christian. Just trying something new on my channel. I just kind of want to do more kind of like discussion videos, more like me talking to the camera, kind of giving my opinion on things, like movies and TV shows. And today I figured might as well talk about Marvel Phase 4. This video has kind of been a long time coming, just because, yeah, this phase has just been kind of up and down for me. I'm obviously a big Marvel fan, and I really enjoyed the first three phases and everything. But yeah, this season or this phase, I should say, there's just been a lot of like kind of cracks in it, I guess, so to speak. I just felt like I just wanted to present this video of how I would do Marvel Phase 4. I think there's like a lot of great movies in there. There's obviously some duds. There's some movies that could have been probably could have been a series, and there's some series that could have been just a movie. So yeah, I just figured that, I just want to kind of make this video just explain, how I would make Marvel Phase 4. So yeah, for today's video, I just wanted to kind of go through each of the Marvel Cinematic Universe Phase 4's film and series and kind of just give my kind of overall opinion on it and everything. And then, once I kind of go through all that, I'll give kind of like my what if scenario of how I would do Marvel Phase 4. So yeah, I guess to start off, we'll go with WandaVision. I thought this was like a really awesome show. Like it really kind of like blew my mind when it first appeared and everything. Like, because obviously we didn't really know what to expect after Endgame and Far From Home. So finally kind of like seeing it, especially that first episode where it's kind of like in black and white, you kind of don't really know like what's going on or anything. And then you realize like, oh shoot, like this is kind of like a simulation, so to speak. And then as the series goes on, you figure like, oh shoot, this is actually Wanda creating the whole world. And, she's kind of like manipulating everything just because based on her past trauma and everything like that. So I thought it was like really, really brilliant. I know like some people had a problem with like the first couple episodes because, they were in black and white and people were just like, wait, what's this show? Like, what the heck is going on here and everything? But, you had to continue on with the show. And then like once you realize like every episode is like a new decade and everything, I thought like that was like really, really creative, like the way they did that. But yeah, just the fact that, all this was kind of based on Wanda's past trauma and that she was kind of creating all this based on like all the loss that she had in her life, like, losing her parents and then losing Pietro and then obviously losing Vision and then kind of creating this whole world, I thought was, yeah, pretty awesome. But yeah, I guess like my only kind of criticism was just like the ending where it kind of became like the normal kind of like Marvel villain, like Agatha versus Wanda and everything, their kind of big CGI battle. Honestly, I could think would have been interesting if, I think it's by the eighth episode where Agatha's kind of tempting Wanda in order to kind of bring her over to the dark side, so to speak. That'll go to a really good like cliffhanger if, Wanda, finally, got over her trauma and then, freed all the people of Westview and, they were able to like, come to and, go back to their normal lives. And then, Wanda was kind of like left by herself. And then Agatha kind of came back into the picture, said, hey, there's a way to bring in your family back again, your boys, I can help you out of this dark hold, I can like bring them back to life. And I thought that would have been kind of like a cool, like episode 9 twist or even episode 8 twist of Wanda falling to the dark side under Agatha and then her officially preparing the way to become the Scarlet Witch. So yeah, I think that would have been kind of cool, and instead of, Wanda putting Agatha under kind of some spell to make her normal and everything, I mean, obviously we're going to get like the Agatha, I think it was Coven of Chaos. I think it would have been kind of cool if, WandaVision would have ended with them teaming up and then her storyline can continue on into Doctor Strange 2, her being into the dark side, and then Agatha kind of spinning off into her own show with Coven of Chaos. But yeah, those are my thoughts on WandaVision. We can kind of move on to Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought this was also a really good show. Honestly, I think this could have been a movie. It seemed like they kind of like dragged on a lot of storylines that weren't really all that necessary. Yeah, I really feel like if they focus more on Sam and Bucky facing the new Captain America, I thought that would have been really cool. Or if they could just start off with Sam just becoming the new Captain America, just right off the bat, and then obviously all of his kind of failing, so to speak, of like taking on that mantle, and then obviously the conflict he has with Bucky, and then maybe like something completely goes wrong, and then like the mantle's taken away from him, and then new Captain America John Walker comes in, and it has to be the one to kind of like step up, and then it's kind of Sam's redemption arc to finally take the mantle back for his own and everything. So I thought that would have been kind of cool. And then obviously, they're setting up for the Thunderbolts and for Captain America New World Order later on. So I think that would have been, I think having the post-credit scene from the end of Black Widow where Val is recruiting Yelena to like join the fight and everything, I thought that would have been kind of cool if they put that at the end of this series of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Just kind of like tie Val in more. You can obviously still have the whole ending scene where Val's recruiting John Walker, so you can kind of set the Thunderbolts there, but then you can kind of set up Yelena's big reveal in Hawkeye, and then set that up here in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I thought that would have been kind of cool if they did that. Obviously, we'll get to Black Widow later with Yelena's big arc and everything, but yeah, we'll wait for that. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Falcon and Winter Soldier. I thought it was like a great series, had like good a lot of themes with Black Captain America, having a Black Captain America, and like what that kind of means for the world and everything. Just for me personally, I thought that was really cool idea. And then the character of Isaiah Bradley, I thought was an amazing character. I thought they gave him like just the amount of screen time that he needed, and kind of brought in those themes of like racism and like kind of sweeping things under the rug when it comes to these kind of like experiments and everything. But yeah, I thought he was a really great addition. Yeah, I hope they bring him back in like Captain America New World Order. I think that would be really cool as well. So we move on to Loki, another show that I really thought could have just been a movie, or really didn't need to be made. Yeah, I know in Endgame, Loki takes the Tesseract and he's kind of teleported off into who knows where, and this series kind of picks up on that. But I honestly think that Loki could have really been a cool, just like Loki mischief kind of show where he's taking the Tesseract and he's like bouncing from place to place to place. But instead of like the TVA kind of going after him, maybe it can be some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of cosmic police force or something that's kind of chasing after him. And then maybe it can be kind of like where he's kind of like taking all these different identities and personas, and he's doing like all these different like heists and creating all this chaos and mischief and stuff like that. And you could obviously have the character of Sylvie in there. Would have been cool, like side character, maybe like all these kind of like poppings here and there from different dimensions. He runs into Sylvie, and then they be kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde kind of situation. I thought that would have been kind of cool. Honestly, I don't really think they should have hinted at the multiverse in this movie or in the show, and kind of save that for like obviously Doctor Strange or Spider-Man Spider-Man No Way Home, and then maybe save King the Conqueror for Doctor Strange. I'll kind of get more toward Doctor Strange, my ideas for that later on. But yeah, I really think honestly this could have just been just a fun heist movie, or a fun just Loki's mischief kind of movie, because obviously he's a fan favorite. So having him have his own little adventure, self-contained adventure, would have been kind of cool, instead of like dragging onto a series, and especially having season 2, which I don't think they really need. If it was still a series, it could have just been self-contained, but I don't know. That's kind of just my thoughts on it. But yeah, I thought it was like a fun show. Definitely dragged on way too long. Could have been just a self-contained story. And the character of Sylvie was awesome. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. All right, now we get into Black Widow. Obviously, as many people have agreed, this should have been a movie that should have been in like phase 2 or 3. Honestly, I think this could have been like a good just phase 3 movie. Just kind of, maybe it kind of came like right after Civil War, and then kind of showed Natasha's journey, because obviously this movie takes place in between Civil War and Infinity War, and that could have been like planted right in between those movies, and kind of been like her awesome like origin story slash one-off movie. And yeah, I honestly don't think it should have belonged in phase 4. Hey, at least we got a Black Widow movie, so better late than never, I guess. But yeah, I don't really have too much to say on it. I thought it was like a solid movie. As I said earlier, I think the post-credit scene of introducing Yelena and then setting up her storyline in Hawkeye would have been better at the end of Falcon the Winter Soldier. And then, you could have just had, the self-contained Black Widow story in phase three, and that would have been a good transition for that. But yeah, oh well. Also, I kind of want to preface with this kind of critique of all these movies and films that I really feel like phase four should have been more about kind of like the characters that we fell in love with in between phases one through three. And then maybe phases five and six could have been more of like introducing the new characters and everything. Because obviously we still have like a lot of characters at the end of Endgame that survived and everything. And I think just having a phase that just was more of just about like the kind of like the fallout from Endgame, and then kind of setting up phase five with King Dynasty and Secret Wars would have been good. This is kind of like the transitional phase, so to speak, before getting into like the more intense stuff in phases five and six. So that being said, kind of moving forward with this critique, I'm going to kind of try to kind of mostly talk about the films that really belonged in phase four and not so much the films that could have just been pushed back to phases five and six. All right, so let's move on to What If. I thought this was a fun concept. Honestly, I think some of the episodes could have been taken out. I think this would have actually been better as like a 6-episode miniseries. I think the Doctor Strange episode was awesome. The Captain Carter was pretty good too, and obviously those set up the events in Doctor Strange 2, just like the alternate dark version of Doctor Strange, as well as Captain Carter being in kind of the whole Illuminati scene. I thought was really cool. But other than that, I think there's some episodes that could have been cut out, and then I don't really think they need a season two. I mean, unless they set up more of like the multiverse for phases five and six, and kind of have more tie-ins there. But I think this could have just been just like a self-contained 6-episode miniseries, because obviously it kind of leads up to kind of like this alternate Avengers showdown at the end during the finale. So I think of just having like the characters that were in that one, kind of like having the first 5 episodes be about the setup for those characters, and then the last episode kind of being the culmination, I think would have been really good. But yeah, other than that, I mean, there's not really much to say about it. It was just kind of like just a fun concept, and it was fun while it lasted. But yeah, I think it kind of just dragged on a little bit, and I don't think it really needs a season 2. All right, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This one was a really good film for sure. Definitely one of the best of phase 4 in my opinion. I think the only downside is that I really feel like it could have been saved for phase 5, just because it really didn't tie into anything for phase 4. It was really just kind of Marvel kind of just throwing a bunch of characters in there, like, as they normally do with this phase, and just kind of seeing what sticks. Like, obviously this was, in my opinion, was a great movie, but yeah, just didn't really have any kind of connective tissue with the rest of the films, if that makes sense. So honestly, I think this really could have been saved for phase 5. Maybe it could have kicked off phase 5 and could have introduced the character of Wong. And yeah, speaking of Wong, I think Wong really could have been like a really cool like side character, maybe kind of like a mentor figure to Shang-Chi. But I think there's like some great side characters in there, having the Mandarin, the official Mandarin, be in the series and kind of give his whole backstory. And then kind of the resolution for Trevor Slattery's character was really good. I'm glad that they brought him in as like kind of like a supporting role in this show, just because I feel like obviously he was very disappointing in Iron Man 3. And then they kind of gave him more explanation in the All Hail to the King Marvel one shot. So it's kind of cool seeing him back in the Marvel Cinematic Universe again, and actually doing something essential. But yeah, I really don't have too much to say about Shang-Chi. I thought it was like a fine film. I think it could have just been saved for phase 5, and then just, as I said before, phase 4 could have really just been about the surviving characters from Endgame, and then how they're kind of transitioning after those events. But yeah, other than that, I thought it was a solid film, and yeah, it's definitely a good addition to the cinematic universe. All right, and Eternals. So yeah, what can I say about Eternals? I mean, it wasn't horrible. I think the Rotten Tomatoes score kind of, it did kind of a disservice to it. I mean, it wasn't horrible. It was just kind of more just a meh at the most, just in my opinion. I honestly, I think this really could have been a series. This really obviously could have been like a 10 episode series or even like 8 episode series or whatever, where like each episode is about a different era in this kind of prehistory of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think it takes place over like 1,000 years. I've only seen it once, so so I'm sorry if I'm wrong about the details. But yeah, it just talks about the whole history of the evolution of humanity and everything. And I think each episode could have been like a century about that, where and it could have centered around each of the characters because I thought characters were fine. It's just half of them really didn't get much to do. Like I feel like all like the A-list celebrity actors who are playing the characters were kind of just there, and it was really kind of like the newer actors or the actors who haven't been exposed as much were kind of just the ones kind of picking up the story and everything. I think it's like a 2.5 hour movie, but it feels kind of rushed in a way. So I think if anything, this movie really could have been a series, and I actually wouldn't have minded, and then they could have like taken their time, explaining the Celestials and the Eternals, and how they affect the Marvel Cinematic Universe and everything. And then all these new characters, Harry Styles' character who shows up at the very end, and I think his name's Pip or something, shows up at the very end. That they could have had their own episode or something. But other than that, I mean, I thought there were some concepts that were really really cool, that were really interesting, that could have been expanded on. And I think a series like a Disney Plus series could have been perfect for that. Oh yeah, and Blade, the introduction of Blade, or at least his voiceover, and then the Ebony Blade by Jon Snow's character. I thought that was kind of cool, setting that up. Setting up Blade, the fact that there's like vampires and like half vampires, and then werewolves. We're kind of getting to more of the supernatural side of Marvel, which I'll talk about later with Moon Knight and Werewolf by Night. Which I think is kind of cool. And then I have no idea if they'll introduce Morbius into Marvel Cinematic Universe, or that will just be separate in the MCU, from the MCU and everything. But other than that, I think it was like a solid. Well, I would say it's more like a it was a good attempt, and it was an interesting concept. And I think you know if they were to expand it into a series, I think that would have been a whole lot better. Okay, now we move on to Hawkeye, and I thought this was a really really fun show. It was definitely a step up from like the Loki show, because I was kind of bummed out by the ending of that, and I was kind of like, are the shows really going to be as good as they were before and everything? But yeah, I honestly really liked Hawkeye. It was a really fun show. Again, kind of like what I said with Falcon and Winter Soldier. I think this could have just been a movie, maybe like one of the earlier films in Phase 4 or something, because the events obviously take place after Endgame, so can't really put that in phases 2 or 3. But yeah, I really appreciate that this was kind of like a different Hawkeye. This is kind of like more like a beaten down Hawkeye. This is definitely not the Avengers Hawkeye that we kind of knew and love. He's definitely more of just like, I just want to retire already. I knew I should have stretched and all this stuff. And I thought the introduction of Kate Bishop was great. The introduction of Echo was awesome. The reintroduction of Kingpin into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I loved all the Netflix Marvel shows. Loved all those. I thought that was great, especially Daredevil. That was my favorite of all the Netflix Marvel shows. So the fact that they were kind of bringing them back in, and obviously bringing Matt Murdock in Far From Home, and then She-Hulk, which I'll get to later, was great as well. So I'm glad they're kind of bringing everything kind of back home, so to speak. But yeah, I think if this were to be a movie, it could have just been just like Hawkeye and Kate Bishop. They're kind of like buddy comedy, kind of action show or action film and everything. And it really could have just ended with Hawkeye officially passing on the mantle to Kate Bishop, and then Kate Bishop being the new Hawkeye and everything. Because I know they're setting kind of like new Avengers with Miss Marvel, and with obviously with Kate Bishop, and with Riri Williams as Ironheart, kind of setting the next generation of Avengers. Yeah, which I think is totally fine. You kind of need to retire out the old Avengers and kind of bring in this new blood if you want to kind of continue the cinematic universe going forward. So I think there's just some storylines that could have been cut out. I think if you reduced Echo's storyline a little bit more, like maybe that would have kind of had more given more screen time to just Hawkeye and Kate Bishop, their adventure and everything. And then maybe kind of save more Echo stuff for later for her series in Phase 5. But yeah, other than that, I thought yeah, it was like a really fun show. It really kind of brought me back to like the old kind of like the earlier phase Marvel movies with like Hawkeye's whole dynamic and everything. But yeah, I really don't have like many bad things to say. Like it was like a fun show. Could have been shorter, could have been a little bit more condensed. But other than that, yeah, fun, solid series. All right, now we get on to Spider-Man No Way Home, which obviously is, in my opinion, was like the best of the Marvel Phase 4 films so far. I mean, we'll still see where Black Panther is. As of this recording, Black Panther is still a month out, so I haven't seen it, but hopefully it'll be good. Fingers crossed. Kind of get to my thoughts on that later on. But yeah, as for No Way Home, oh man, yeah, definitely the best movie for sure. For obvious reasons, for bringing in the old characters, bringing in Tom Maguire. Spoilers if you haven't seen it by now. Tom Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and obviously the old cast. Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, Jimmy Fox, and all the other Spider-Man villains from the Spider-Man series and from the Amazing Spider-Man series. So obviously that brought in a whole lot of nostalgia to it, because I remember seeing the Tobey Maguire movies like in the theaters, like all three of those movies back in the theaters. So obviously my nostalgia goggles were on while I was watching the movie. But I mean, other than that, like it really was like a solid film. Besides bringing in the old Spider-Man and the villains and everything, Tom Holland, Zendaya, Jacob Batalon, like their acting was like, on point. I appreciated like all the choices they made, all their acting choices, the story choice with the writing and everything. There's just definitely like a solid film for sure. I mean, obviously no one really knows what the future of the Tom Holland movies are, whether Sony's gonna just officially take over or if Marvel's gonna have any input in it. But I mean, I guess we'll see. They have Morbius and Venom, so maybe I know there's the post-credit scene of the symbiote in the bar after Venom got transported back to his dimension and everything. So yeah, maybe we'll get some black suited Spider-Man with Tom Holland in the future. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But yeah, speaking of characters, I mean, Doctor Strange, I thought this was like he was a really good just supporting character to Peter Parker. Because obviously, Iron Man's dead. He doesn't really have a mentor figure. So I thought Doctor Strange was definitely like, the next person to go to for Peter. And I thought their dynamic was great. Definitely reminded me of like, kind of like a Doc and Marty situation from like Back to the Future and everything, which I thought was really cool. It was a great introduction to, the idea of the multiverse. And, honestly, I think this could have been, released after Doctor Strange too. Like Doctor Strange could have been released first, and this could have been the aftermath. But I know there's like some switching up, and like this came before Doctor Strange. But I think if they just kind of stick with the original plan and then just had Doctor Strange release first, and then kind of show No Way Home, I think that would have been really cool too. Just because the idea of like, hey, Doctor Strange knows about a multiverse, so now I can send Spider-Man to an alternate reality, so to speak, where no one knows that he's Spider-Man anymore, rather than except for like his friends and family. So I think that would have been cool. But I don't know the behind the scenes of everything, but yeah, I guess they had a reason for why they had that whole switcheroo and everything. But yeah, but obviously, yeah, it worked out for the best. And Doctor Strange was a very good character. I think if they did kind of do the whole switcheroo, I think the post-credit scene at the end of Doctor Strange could have fit really well at the end of No Way Home, and kind of show the consequences of like Doctor Strange's actions for like messing with the multiverse and everything, kind of breaking it, so to speak. I thought that would have been really cool. But hey, I'm glad we got the teaser trailer for Doctor Strange 2 for the post-credit scene of No Way Home. I remember seeing that in the theater, where everyone just kind of left. Most like half the theater just left, and they were just like, "Where's everybody going?" And then the Doctor Strange 2 trailer dropped, and yeah, I think they dropped it like maybe like a couple weeks before it was on YouTube and everything. So I thought that was kind of a special surprise right there. But yeah, other than that, really, I can go on and on about the praises for No Way Home. bringing the old actors back, and the acting, and then the music and the action and the drama. Aunt May's death, spoilers, was really dramatic, and then his confrontation with Green Goblin at the end was amazing. I thought it was really cool. And then obviously the shot with all the three Spider-Men coming down and working together, I thought it was really cool. But anyway, I'll I don't want this review to be too long, so I'll sort of wrap up. But other than that, obviously Spider-Man No Way Home, definitely the best of Marvel Phase 4, in my opinion. And then we move on to Moon Knight, and I thought this was like a solid show for sure. In my opinion, this could have been a movie as well. There's just like a lot of like storylines and elements that could have been trimmed out. I think if they really focus on the PTSD aspect of Moon Knight, all his multiple personalities, and like why he created all these multiple personalities to kind of deal with all his past trauma and everything. I thought that would have been really, really cool if they maybe had like, I don't know, like the first hour could have been Moon Knight's kind of like antics and everything, with like his different personalities, and then maybe like at the hour mark could have been where episode 5 picked up, where you realize like, oh, is this all in his head? And the kind of like the wackiness that kind of happens, it could have been like the rest of the show. Then obviously the ending of the series finale was kind of a letdown. I mean, I think the peak of the show was episode 5, where you realize like this is all like in his head, so to speak. And the whole reason of like why he became these two personalities of like Stephen Grant and Mark Spector. The whole reason why they had the whole split, because that flashback of him and his little brother going to the cave, and then his brother passing away from drowning. I thought that was like a really great twist, and the whole thing of like Mark and Steven like working together to try to like while they're on that boat with the Hippo character, I forget her name, I'm sorry, as they kind of go into like the next life or something, and then Steven sacrifices himself or to save Mark. I mean, honestly, I think the show could have ended there, and I would have been happy. That's kind of a resolution to his character. Then obviously you have to have like the whole big Marvel fight of like the giant alligator and the giant bird creature. Forgive me for not remembering all the names, kind of going at it and everything. And I was like, okay, what is this, like Godzilla versus Kong or something, a big kaiju battle or something like that, rather than kind of being more of like this kind of like psychological thriller, like the psychological drama about getting over past trauma and everything. But obviously, it's Marvel. You got to have your big battle at the end between the hero and the villain. So I thought it was kind of like over the top, but is what it is. But yeah, I thought Oscar Isaac was amazing in the show. The fact that he had to have like, honestly, like, I guess 5 personalities if you think about it, because he has like the 3. He has like Steven, Mark, and Jake, and then Moon Knight and the Mr. Knight. So I thought that was pretty awesome as well. Yeah, I mean those were pretty much my thoughts on the show. If they ever does get a season 2, I mean I'll watch it. I mean, I thought it was like, it's an interesting world. I think honestly, if this was just like either save for Phase 5, or it could have been just like its own kind of like pocket universe, so to speak, kind of like the Batman with Robert Pattinson, or like Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, are kind of like separate from the DCEU, but they're still still dealing with the characters and everything. I thought that would have been kind of cool for Marvel if they have like their kind of like their darker characters like Moon Knight and Blade and Werewolf by Night and all this stuff, kind of in their own separate universe, kind of away from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because I think that's just like one of the problems with Phase 4 in general, is that they're throwing so many different tones into like one storyline, and they kind of expect us to think like all this is connected. But by the time you watch all the movies and all the shows, like like the season finale, or the end of the movie, there's not really a lot of like tie-ins really. Like maybe there'll be more tie-ins in Phase 5 where everything's more connected, but it really doesn't seem like everything's fits well together, so to speak. You know, like if they wanted to have like their own kind of separate universes, like Marvel Dark and Marvel proper, they could totally do that. But the fact that they're kind of like, no, everything's essential. You got to watch every single movie, every single TV show, every single post-credit scene, every single assembled documentary, every single one shot and everything. And it's all going to connect, I promise. I don't know, it's just a lot, where it just feels more like homework rather than, anticipation. Where like, Marvel phases like 1 through 3, like even if, Iron Man and Captain America and like Thor and Hulk, those movies didn't necessarily have a lot of crossover. They still had like a little hint here and there to like lead up into the next film, with all their post-credit scenes where it really felt like everything was building on one another. Like, or even like, phases 2 and 3, where you introduce all these new characters and everything. We're like, okay, how are they going to fit? Like, there's like one little tie-in that kind of connects everything together. But with all of these like phase 4 shows, it really just seems like kind of stuff where they're just kind of throwing stuff out there, seeing what sticks, and then expecting us to think that everything's all going to be connected somehow, when it's not. So anyway, let's move on. All right, so now we get into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Again, another solid movie. I think kind of the flip side of what I've been saying earlier. I think instead of a movie, this could have been like, I honestly would have been cool if like this was like, a miniseries, like a 6 episode miniseries, just because there's just so many concepts with like the multiverse and like the Illuminati, and just, yeah, just a lot of like just kind of out there concepts. I think it would have been really cool if they, kind of took their time and expanded on these different situations and spells and characters and all this stuff by having like each episode. Maybe it can be, the end of the first episode could be Doctor Strange and America, transporting to a new dimension. Each episode could be a new dimension, and then Doctor Strange is learning more about the multiverse and more about like the consequences of like if all these were kind of integrated somehow or like collided or whatever it might be. And he's kind of like gradually learning his lesson of, learning to be selfless and everything. Cause that's obviously the theme of Doctor Strange, is like going from like being selfish to selfless. So I thought that would have been really cool. You could have expanded on the Illuminati, just because I know a lot of people had a problem with how the Illuminati were kind of portrayed in this show, or in this movie, where it feels like, oh, they're kind of wasted, even though these are kind of like an alternate version of like the Illuminati that might be in the Marvel proper universe. So yeah, we might see, Mr. Fantastic and, Charles Xavier and, these different versions of like Maria Rambeau and Peggy Carter and everything. But in this universe, obviously they were killed off by Wanda. Spoilers. So we won't be seeing them, at least those versions, in any of the future Marvel projects. But hey, maybe they might be introduced again in the Fantastic Four movie or the Marvels movie, or things like that. So we'll see. If they were to have this as a series, this would have been really, really cool. Just kind of like, take their time with these concepts and not really like rush it. Because I think there's like a lot of like deleted scenes and everything that weren't released that could have like explained things a little bit more. So yeah, if this were to be a series, they could have, taken their time and slowed things down and have more, I guess, just more of a like an arc for these characters, so to speak. So oh yeah, and I think if they introduced Kang at the end of like, if this were to be a series and they were introduced the character of Kang in like the finale instead of how they introduced him in Loki, I think that would have been really interesting. Just because obviously Doctor Strange is a bigger character, at least in my opinion, than Loki is. And I think having him know about Kang at the beginning, as he's learning more about the multiverse, I think that would have been really, really cool to have that be the ending of like the finale of this hypothetical Doctor Strange in the Multiverse series. That would have been a really cool finale, and kind of really set up phases 5 and 6 with with the Kang Dynasty, and then Secret Wars, if he ends up being in that movie as well. I think that would have been really cool to do that. Just have kind of like switch up the releases, or switch up the formats. Have Loki just be a movie, just a fun movie where like he's going from place to place with the Tesseract and creating all this mischief, and then have Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness be a series, and then introduce Kang, and then have maybe Doctor Strange does something wrong where everything starts to branch out, where everything was like on one timeline, everything starts to branch out, or I guess since there already is a multiverse, everything kind of gets integrated, and then the finale, the season finale could have been him working with America to try to clip the branches, so to speak, or something, or do some kind of event that kind of like puts everything back to the way it was. I don't know, that could have been something that would have been really cool. But I mean, I enjoy the movie. I enjoy Multiverse of Madness, but I think just like my one hesitation is that, it just feels like it was kind of rushed and it could have been expanded on a little bit more. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on it. All right, and now Miss Marvel. Again, I think this could have been just a movie, just like a one-off movie. It didn't really need to be a series, just in my opinion. A lot of things could have been cut out. A lot of characters could have been cut out. A lot of storylines could have been cut out. There's just a lot of characters that kind of get introduced in like one episode and they get either killed off or they don't really get mentioned again, or they don't get mentioned until like later on in the show. I think if they just had like a core set of characters and just followed them, maybe like, Kamala Khan and then her two friends, and then just kind of follow like their storyline, and then like the love interest character, maybe him as the antagonist, would have been kind of cool. And then because I thought like the first couple episodes, where she's like discovering her powers and everything, was really fun. And then the ending was pretty interesting as well. Not as interesting as the first episodes, in my opinion, but yeah, I think this could have been just really awesome movie. And then obviously set up the Marvels with the whole switcheroo with like her being sent off to some other dimension, and then Carol Danvers' character being sent into her dimension. Would have been really cool. Yeah, I think this could have just been a solid, just 2 hour movie. We could have explained everything, in more of a condensed time frame. Yeah, I don't really have too much other thoughts. I think it was solid. Kamal Khan, the actress who played her, was obviously very good, very entertaining, and yeah, I'm excited to see her more in the Marvels and in King Dynasty and Secret Wars if she's ever in that one as well. So yeah, thumbs up. Oh yeah, and the post credit scene of Kamala discovering that she's a mutant. I thought that was an interesting way to kind of start setting up the stage for the mutants kind of being integrated into the MCU and everything. Because I know we got Charles Xavier in Multiverse of Madness, and then we got Pietro, fake Pietro, Quicksilver from the X-Men movies in WandaVision, even though that didn't really come to anything, which I was kind of bothered by, but I'll say that for another video. But yeah, but the fact that they're bringing the X-Men, kind of like the classic X-Men, into the MCU is obviously really, really awesome. And I'm glad that, because obviously the X-Men are very big characters in the comic books, especially when it comes to like the Secret War storyline. A lot of them are very essential. So bringing them into the MCU before we kind of get into King Dynasty and Secret Wars, the films, I think is very, very important. So I think setting the stage and kind of planting the seeds early to kind of bring the X-Men into the MCU, I think is very important. So yeah, I thought that was like a little kind of good little little tidbit in there. All right, and now we move on to Thor: Love and Thunder. Yeah, it's definitely one of my most anticipated movies of Phase 4, and one of my biggest disappointments. I'll try to say some of the positive stuff first. I thought Jane Foster's character was really cool. I thought her whole arc was solid. Like out of all the characters in the movie, I think hers was definitely like the most, like the one I was kind of drawn to the most. The fact that she had cancer, and then the Mjolnir kind of called to her because she was pure of heart, and then having Mjolnir kind of gave her, obviously turned her into like Lady Thor, and then kind of empowered her in a way. And then every time she transferred back into Jane Foster, she becomes sicker and sicker. I think if Taika Waititi kind of drew on that aspect of the movie, kind of made it more dramatic instead of kind of making it like Ragnarok 2.0, but still not as good as Ragnarok, just because Ragnarok is my favorite Thor movie. And I think a lot of people's favorite Thor movie. And I think having that tone kind of replicated in Thor: Love and Thunder was kind of a mistake. It seemed like kind of Taika Waititi kind of just didn't watch Infinity War or Endgame or anything, and he kind of just like, I'm just going to take the Thor from Ragnarok and just kind of transplant him back into Love and Thunder. It's like Infinity War Endgame, that didn't happen. I'm just going to bring it back. So yeah, I thought that was kind of annoying, but I because I don't mind Thor being funny. I loved him in Ragnarok, obviously, and then in Endgame when he was like Fat Thor, I thought that was really fun. I know some people didn't like it, but this is my opinion. But I think he had an arc at the end of Endgame, where he had to take on that responsibility. He was still loose and fun and everything, but he changed in a way. He he battled Thanos. He saw the loss of his people. Um, you know, he had to kind of pass on the mantle to Valkyrie in a way and kind of find out who he was rather than who people expect him to be, as he said in the movie. Um, so yeah, he really had, he had an arc, and to not really acknowledge what came before it, I think was a really big mistake. And the fact that kind of like I was saying earlier is that there just doesn't really feel like there's kind of like connective tissue between phases 3 and 4 in some aspects. It just seems like they're just kind of starting over in a way, which I know they're trying to get a fresh start, but I mean to not really have all the films and some of the films and some of the TV projects not acknowledge what happened before. At least like the dramatic arcs of all these characters, I think is like a really big mistake. So yeah. So anyway, I guess yeah, just some good aspects of the movie. Yeah, Jane Foster's great. I thought Christian Bale's character as Gore the God Butcher was fine. I think I think also there was like deleted scenes of him, butchering all the gods and everything like that for his arc. I think his arc was his character was like really relatable. I think if they just played into that, it's like Taika Waititi. I love Taika Waititi. I love all of his movies. There's just a couple I haven't seen, but like What We Do in the Shadows and Hunt for the Wilder People, Jojo Rabbit. He's really good at balancing like comedy and drama, and I feel like in this movie the comedy outweighed the drama. There was definitely drama there with Jane Foster's character and with Gore the God Butcher, losing his daughter and everything at the beginning. But I feel like that the comedy definitely outweighed the drama, where they just kind of make Thor like an idiot, and he doesn't really learn from his mistakes. They kind of regressed his character from how he was in Infinity War and Endgame, and then just kind of made him stupid. uh, but yeah, but other than that, I guess those were kind of like my criticism of the movie. I think would have been really cool is that if this was actually Thor's last film, like if they kind of did like pull the Logan with Hugh Jackman where they kill off his character and everything, and have this kind of be Thor's end, and then him kind of passing on the mantle to Valkyrie to be like the new, not necessarily the new Thor, but like the new official leader of Asgard, which was kind of what he did at the end of Endgame, but they kind of reversed that a little bit. But oh well. But yeah, I think if he were to like, or if he were to like sacrifice himself for Jane Foster, where I don't know, there's some kind of magic that he has to channel through himself into Jane to kind of help her, free her of the cancer and, become Lady Thor officially. But doing so, he would have to sacrifice his own life. I think that would have been really cool for his character, just kind of end his storyline. But yeah, it just seems like, I don't know, by the end of the movie, it just seemed like, like, what's the point really? Like now he's a dad, or I guess Uncle Thor. Then he's going to battle like Hercules or something. It just seems like what was the big thing that kind of shook up the Marvel Cinematic Universe within this movie? Kind of like, again, like what I was saying before, was that it just seems like they're just throwing these storylines in there, and then everything's kind of self-contained and doesn't really continue on into Phase 5. And obviously, at this point of this recording, like I haven't seen Phase 5 and 6, so I don't know if they'll ever address these issues. But yeah, it just seems like they're just having they're just introducing all these characters and introducing all these concepts, and nothing's really connecting, so to speak. And it does get kind of frustrating where they I don't think it's Marvel's fault. I think it's like Disney imposing their will onto Marvel to kind of crank out all these different movies and shows. It's more like quantity over quality. Like I'm sure like Kevin Feige is really wanting to set up these different characters properly and have them have their time to shine in Marvel Cinematic Universe at their proper time and everything. Yeah, but it just seems like Disney's really trying to push. We got to have our $2.7 billion franchise. We have to have our next Endgame, and instead of taking their time, because Phase 1 was like what, from 2008 to 2012. That was like 4 years to build up from all these individual movies to the Avengers. But with from the end of Endgame to the end of Secret Wars, like what, that's 2019 to 2025, I think, is when Secret Wars was supposed to be released. So that's like, the whole time it took to get from Iron Man to Endgame, it was like, 11 years, and they're kind of chopping that in half to get to their next $2.7 billion movie. So yeah, so it's kind of frustrating in a way. That's really just more about, it's all about the moolah instead of about making some quality products or some quality films. But I don't know. I don't work in Disney, so I don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But yeah, uh, I guess they're doing something right in their own eyes. So who am I to say? But yeah, other than that, that's kind of all my ideas on Thor. I thought it was a little bit of a letdown. I really wanted to like it. I love Jane Foster's character, don't get me wrong, and I thought Christian Bale's portrayal of Gore was fine. But other than that, Thor was just kind of dumb, kind of regressed. I don't really feel like he learned anything. Even by the end where he's like talking with Gore's daughter, I feel like he was just kind of back to, oh, hey, I'm fun dad Thor. I'm gonna make some pancakes for you. Let's go fight some villains and stuff. It's like it's like he didn't really even feel the impact of like the loss of Jane. Like he wasn't even like, lamenting her really. But anyway, sorry, this is getting too long, so I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. Yeah, so as of this recording, I just watched the finale with my wife the night before when it first came out, and yeah, we were very, very let down. I mean, I guess we were just mostly kind of confused about like, is this supposed to be like intentionally bad? Is it supposed to be intentionally addressing kind of like I guess the toxic Marvel culture about expecting, everything has to be important, everything has to connect, everything has to have like a post-credit scene, everything has to be like hero and villain fighting each other. And, if I know I've addressed that a lot even in this video of like how I kind of want things to be connected. And, obviously as fans, we're kind of used to the Marvel formula for everything for the past like 10 years and so. So having something that kind of breaks the Marvel formula, I think was refreshing. But I think if they just had it as a movie, it would have been really, really cool instead of dragging it on as a series. Because I know they're trying to address the format of like every single episode has to connect and everything from their past shows. But to have, I feel like at least half the episodes in this show were just kind of pointless in a way. Like they weren't really addressing much of like, the Marvel fan culture and everything. It was kind of just like, oh, we're just gonna end an episode with uh She-Hulk twerking with Megan the Stallion, I think her name was, or something. But it's just like, what? And like other episodes like that with like the character of Titania popping in and then just popping out. It's just like, wait, what? And then not really addressing it. Like Emil Blonsky is now in like a therapy kind of place. It's just like, and then Wong pops in with this drunken girl, and they're watching Sopranos, I think it was something like that. But it's just like, what? uh but yeah, I mean, I can go on and on. I mean, let me address some like good things about the show. I think the character of like Jennifer Walters was really solid. And Tatiana Maslany was amazing in the role. But yeah, I just feel like they just it was kind of like a tone deaf show. Like they didn't really know what they wanted to be, at least in my opinion. Like, is this a Marvel show? Is this a lawyer show? Is this a comedy show? Is it all the above? Which it seems like they were trying to do. But I mean, you gotta have at least like one of those tones be, front and center, and then everything else can kind of fall back within it. But it's just kind of like a frustrating show. I'm sorry. And I know like they're trying to address, the fanboy culture and everything. But even like my wife was watching with me, and she's not like a hardcore Marvel fan. She's just, she's like casual fan. She likes some of the films, some of the movie, or some of the TV shows. She definitely hasn't watched everything like I have. She's just like, like casual fan. And even she was just like, wait, what? So yeah, so I don't even know what audience they're trying to play for, like the casual fan or like the hardcore fan, but it seemed like they didn't really satisfy either one of them. And I'm going to go into like brief spoilers if you haven't seen the finale by now, but like the whole thing of like Jennifer breaking the fourth wall, not only breaking the wall, smashing the fourth wall, and going to like Disney Studios and going to the writers' room and saying like, "Hey, why are you guys writing my show like this?" And then it's like, "Oh, well, you're gonna have to talk to Kevin about it." And then her going into the offices of Marvel, and then seeing Kevin, which is an AI machine, which I thought was funny. I think it would have been funnier if they actually had Kevin Feige in the show, kind of addressing the issues. But yeah, I think the only just downside about that finale was just that nothing felt earned at the end. Like I don't mind her breaking the fourth wall, going to the writer's room, going meeting the Kevin AI and changing things, but the fact that she's like, oh yeah, delete the intelligentsia guy from being the Hulk, delete Bruce Banner from this. Let's have this be in the daytime and everything. And I think if they put that at the midpoint of the episode and then have the rest of it be like the fallout of her, her court case of like, bringing the intelligentsia guy to court. Um, you know, we don't need Titania. That she was kind of like a pointless character. So I don't really need her, or taking out the Hulk. I think was fine, but or Emil Blonsky, taking him out, I think was fine, just because you didn't really serve a purpose to the story either. But having it just be like a court case show with her as a superhero, and kind of like the conflict she has with that would have been really cool. Just movie concept, just like hey, let's have a courtroom drama movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and then obviously bring in Matt Murdock, which I thought was great. His addition, obviously, his episode was definitely the best of the whole series. Just bringing him in was great, but and having him have some comedic moments, whatnot, was really fun. But yeah, I think it was just really just like a tone deaf show. Like they didn't really know what they wanted to be. If it was a movie and having Jennifer be like the main character, and then Bruce Banner be like her support, and her really like the first half of the movie could have been, him passing on the Hulk mantle to Jennifer, and then him going into like his desert island or whatever, to kind of like find himself and everything, and to be all zen. I think would have been kind of cool. But it just wasn't that. And like I said before, I don't mind them breaking the fourth wall and addressing the whole Marvel culture. I mean, because we're definitely we definitely want all this stuff, after phases 1 through 3. And I think addressing the fandom was really fun. But yeah, honestly, if this was just a movie, just a courtroom drama movie where the main attorney just happens to be a superhero, would have been really cool. But yeah, it feels just feels like a waste, really. Just when it comes down to it, like just why did they have this show? But anyway, yeah. Again, Tatiana Maslany was great, and the character Jennifer Walters was great. But just have it be a movie about her conflict between being a lawyer and being a superhero, I thought would have been really, really cool. And then just trying to balance that out, and with Bruce Banner being like her main support and everything, being her mentor and whatnot. Everything else just could have been cut out. But anyway, those are my thoughts on She-Hulk Attorney at Law. Maybe I'll have another video kind of talking more about it. But other than that, that's all I have to say about that, and I'm done. All right, and Werewolf by Night. I thought, yeah, this was a fun show, or a fun special. Definitely good, like one-off. I don't really think it needs to, kind of like what I said with Moon Knight, doesn't really need to connect with the main Marvel Cinematic Universe. This could be like its own kind of like Marvel dark story. So like like Blade and Moon Knight, World by Night. Those could have all been like their own kind of puck universe where they can kind of like play around and have like their kind of horror supernatural battles and everything. Would have been really cool. And they don't necessarily need to kind of be integrated into the MCU and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, not much to say. It was fun. It was scary. Definitely good characters that were introduced. Michael Giacchino, one of my favorite composers. I'm glad that he had his directorial debut with this. So yeah, it was fun. Yeah, not really much to say about it. Other than that, it could have just been separate from the regular MCU. But yeah, it was good. Thumbs up. And then, like I said before, as of this recording, I have not seen Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, but just from the trailers and everything, like I'm just hoping that'll be just like a good setup for the character of like Namor, and for like Riri Williams, for Ironheart, and then for Shuri as the new Black Panther. I appreciate that they're addressing the fact that Chadwick Boseman passed away, and that they're kind of trying to honor his legacy by not recasting the role, but really like integrating that into the story, and then having it be like, oh, hey, we lost our King of Wakanda, and now we have to kind of scramble to find a new one. And then when this kind of mounting threat of like Namor and all these the Submariner people are kind of like invading Wakanda and everything, I thought that was really like a good conflict to have for sure, like on top of trying to find the new king or the new queen, or the new Black Panther and everything. So I really hope that this is like a really really great movie, and really just good way to honor Chadwick Boseman. Because if this movie fails, like I don't know what Marvel's going to do, because obviously Thor: Love and Thunder kind of tanked the box office. Eternals had like one of its worst reviewed Rotten Tomatoes scores. She-Hulk, is getting very low reviews and very like mixed opinions and everything. So if they fail with Black Panther 2, like I don't know what hope they have. But anyway, I haven't seen it yet, so I'm holding out hope, fingers crossed that it'll be good. And I really think it would be good, just based on all these trailers and everything. And Ryan Coogler, love Ryan Coogler. Like, he hasn't made a bad film yet. I mean, Fruitvale Station and Creed, and obviously the first Black Panther were all great. So yeah, I don't think he'll crack under the pressure that Disney and Marvel are kind of putting on his shoulders with this movie. Like, I really hope that this is good, and it's like the number one box office movie of Phase 4, like up there with like No Way Home and everything. But yeah, I have high hopes for this movie, and I really hope it's good. Because I really want to see these characters in the future, and I want there to be hope for Marvel. Like, I don't think they're out of the woods yet. I think they still have these past films from Phase 4 and series have been kind of hit or miss, but I think they have more hits than misses. So I'm still holding out hope. I know some people are kind of done with Marvel at the start of Phase 4 with some of the movies and series, but I'm still holding out hope that they'll still pull through. So we'll see with Wakanda Forever. And kind of wrap things up with Phase 4, we have the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Don't really have many thoughts on this one, because obviously it doesn't come out until December. So yeah, I mean, if it's anything like Werewolf by Night, just be maybe like a 45-minute, 50-minute, self-contained story. I think it said it's supposed to take place in between Love and Thunder and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Maybe like a little kind of transitional adventure. So I'm hoping that with this one, maybe they'll kind of set up where they kind of left off with Endgame, where they're kind of like searching for Gamora and everything. Maybe they'll have like, maybe at the end of this one, they'll have like, oh, we found Gamora. We have to go after her. And then that could be like the storyline for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But, I'm expecting, the normal Guardians comedy, probably address some like Christmas and holiday movie cliches, probably have an awesome 80s soundtrack. Chris Pratt. So yeah. So, and then, Big Groot and Rocket will have their whole dynamic and everything, or Teenage Groot, I think at this point. So yeah, I don't really have many expectations for it. I loved the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I thought Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 was fine, wasn't my favorite. But I did like the characters. Characters are great. Then obviously their dynamic in Infinity War and Endgame with the Avengers characters is great. So yeah, hey, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm in. So we'll see how it goes. All right, so I've been recording for almost an hour now. So I kind of want to wrap up this video by kind of giving my kind of take on like what I would have done with Marvel Phase 4, just based on like all the critiques I said earlier, how this phase really could have played out. So without further ado, let's jump in. So I think this phase could have started off with Thor: Love and Thunder. I think Thor was definitely obviously he's part of the main Avengers crew that survived at the end of Endgame. So I think kind of starting off strong with his storyline would have been really really cool. I think it would have been cool if they kind of followed up with the events of Endgame, where they kind of like fly off into the sunset, so to speak. And kind of could have started off with a really cool adventure between Thor and the Guardians. the Guardians kind of being like the main kind of like back to Thor instead of like in the original movie where they're kind of just in the first 10 minutes and they fly off. I think it would have been really cool if they were kind of integrated into the story a little bit more, as like Thor with the Guardians, the as Guardians of the Galaxy, as they said at the end of Endgame, would have been really cool. It would have been really cool to see their dynamic with like Jane Foster and Valkyrie and the Gore the God Butcher, and kind of seeing how that whole thing played out. And then if this were to end with Thor's sacrifice, and kind of giving his power to Jane to be the new Thor, be Lady Thor, and then Valkyrie being the official leader of New Asgard, would have been kind of cool to kind of wrap up his storyline, and then not kind of continue on into Thor 5, which I guess they're doing. I don't know. Would have been a really cool end for his character and for that whole series, and would have kind of been a really cool start to phase 4, to kind of see like oh shoot, they're killing off all these like characters that we know and love, and like what's the rest of the phase going to be. So I thought that would have been kind of cool to be a good anticipation for the rest of the series, and then it could just end with Guardians flying off into the sunset and everything, and continuing on their adventure in holiday special and Volume 3. And then I think the next one could have been Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I think that was another storyline at the end of Endgame that people were really anticipating. This could have just been a movie, kind of like I was saying before. If it really just focused on Sam and Bucky, their kind of whole kind of like conflict about Cap's decision to pass the mantle on to Sam to be the new Captain America. I think the first half of the movie could just be their whole, their kind of bashing heads against each other, metaphorically, and kind of disagreeing with how Captain America should be, or like the image of Captain America should be. And maybe like the midpoint could be John Walker, his character, kind of like him being the official or like the unofficial, maybe like the bootleg Captain America, and then creating all this conflict. Maybe he's like doing all these crimes, or maybe not even being the new Captain America. Maybe he can be the US agent, and then he's kind of recruited by Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, or like Val, and then Bucky and Sam kind of have to figure out like, oh shoot, okay, we have to stop fighting each other, and we have to kind of work together to take on this new conflict. And then it can kind of play out how it did in the series, just at more like a shortened length. Maybe it can be like a 2.5-hour series or something. And really, yeah, it just could have been that whole dynamic instead. Instead of kind of like what they did this year, is like the one world, one people group, with like the super soldier serum. And I think they could have just cut that all out and just been about John Walker being the new fake Captain America, and then Bucky and Sam being in conflict, but then teaming up to take on this new threat. And then it could have ended with setting up like the Thunderbolt series and Captain America: New World Order, where it could have had like the resolution it had at the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier series, but kind of set up the new events for the future Captain America movies and the future Thunderbolt show. So, yeah. And the next one could be Hawkeye, just because obviously he's the next kind of one of the main Avengers, kind of continue on the storyline with him. Again, could have just been a movie, just like 2.5-hour movie, just a bit about Hawkeye and Kate Bishop's dynamic. Honestly, I think maybe just kind of reduce Echo's role, or even no, actually reverse that. Maybe have her be like the main antagonist, and you can kind of cut Kingpin, maybe save him for She-Hulk or something. Have him and Daredevil be introduced, then just have the main conflict be between Kate Bishop and Echo, if you want to go that route. Or you can go an alternate route where it could be Hawkeye and Kate Bishop against Elena, where that could have been a really cool kind of like continuing storyline from the end of Black Widow. Or you can have it like as a post-credit scene at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that kind of sets up Hawkeye, or like you reintroduce the character of Elena, and then she's kind of like the main conflict. And that would have been really cool if like she's the main antagonist who's trying to kill Hawkeye because she thinks that Hawkeye killed Natasha, so she could have been the main antagonist of the show. And then it could have been about Hawkeye training up Kate Bishop to take on this new threat, and then having the resolution that they did at the end of the series, and then maybe even like save Echo for her own show in phase 5, and then just kind of have the show be about Hawkeye, Kate versus Yelena. And then you can move on to Black Panther, since he was kind of one of the main kind of secondary characters that was introduced into phase three to kind of wrap up all to wrap up all the kind of loose ends of Endgame, where this could just be like about like all the fallout that happened after that. And from, like I said before, I haven't seen Wakanda Forever, so I don't know how it's all going to play out. I don't know if it's going to be more of like a self-contained movie or if it's going to kind of lead on to the next one. But I think that would have been really cool if, kind of like I was saying before, with I think phase four, the focus of phase four really should just be on the existing characters rather than introducing all the new ones. Save that for phase five and six, but have really phase four being kind of like an epilogue to phase three, all the events that happen in Endgame, kind of being like all the fallout that happened, and then kind of set up this kind of next generation for the future of Marvel. So yeah, I think Black Panther could just be its own thing, and then obviously set up Ironheart for that future show, and then Namor's character for like future stories, and for Shuri becoming the next Black Panther. And I'm sure she's going to be a huge role in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. And then we'll move on to Loki, because he's obviously a big character for the first three phases, but he's not one of the Avengers characters. He's one of the villains. So you can kind of save his character arc for the end. Like I said before, just have him have like a self-contained story of just like his mischief and everything, kind of going from place to place with the Tesseract. And then have maybe Sylvie can be, the person who's kind of going after him at first, and then maybe she's kind of like swayed by him, and then it kind of becomes his ally, and then you have the whole kind of Bonnie and Clyde situation going on, and then maybe you have like, I don't know, just like a bigger threat that they have to kind of work together to fight against. Maybe Thor comes in or something, or maybe like Valkyrie comes in like, like an alternate universe version, maybe like, some kind of gods or something, some kind of like the new gods or whatever, have to like, be the main antagonist. Or even like maybe Hercules could be the main antagonist in the Loki show or something, instead of introducing him at the end of Thor Love and Thunder. Maybe he can be like this kind of threat that kind of looms. Like maybe he's kind of sensing like one of these gods of mischief is, creating like all this chaos, and I need to stop him or something. He can be kind of like an anti-hero or something, or like a selfish villain or something, so to speak. And then it's like Loki and Sylvie have to work together to stop Hercules, and he can be like the main antagonist. And that kind of brings an end to all his schemes and whatnot. And then that can be like Loki's character arc, is that he goes from, mischievous to, like a hero in a way. And, maybe he, resumes his place amongst the gods as, where he should be, and as like a ruler or advisor or something. So yeah, that's kind of like my spitball ideas for that. Then you can move on to She-Hulk, just because, she's a new character, but she's kind of coming under Hulk, who's one of the main characters. So maybe kind of save her as kind of like one of like the last, or one of the first new characters to be introduced into phase four moving forward. And then, like I said before, just have a self-contained movie, courtroom drama show, and then have maybe some villains pop in here and there. Hulk can be like her mentor, and then, kind of shepherd her into becoming the new Hulk figure. And then he can go off to space to Sakaar or whatever to have a son. Anyway, I won't get into that. I won't get back into that. But yeah, he can kind of pass the mantle on to her to become the new Hulk. And she can break the fourth wall, whatnot. And then that can just be like her main arc, is that she has to go from being like kind of like Doctor Strange's arc, where he kind of started off as like kind of like a selfish doctor, kind of self-centered, surgeon and everything. And then he realizes like, now I have to be a hero and like protect others. So you can start off with like Jennifer Walters being like this like hotshot lawyer, and she's taking all these cases, and then she has this accident which turns into the Hulk, and then maybe she can't be a lawyer, or maybe she can't control it as well as she did in the original series. And it's really her having to partner with Bruce Banner to like control her emotions, and have that balance between being attorney and then being a superhero, and then having that conflict. And you can have Daredevil in there if you want to be like a love interest, or something where like because he's obviously an attorney too, he has to balance between being a lawyer and being a superhero. So maybe he can kind of also give her advice in order to kind of have that balance as well. And then it can kind of end with her, not only being the bad guy, whoever the bad guy might be, maybe it can be like Kingpin or something, but also winning the big court case, and then finding that balance between that she was looking for all along. So anyway, I thought that would have been really cool. And yeah, if you want to have her break into Marvel Studios and confront Kevin Feige or something about the writing, maybe save that for another time if they do like a sequel. But yeah, I think that would have been really, really cool. So maybe kind of like a 12 Angry Men, but 12 Angry Hulks or something, But anyway, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. And then what if, kind of like I said before, just be like, that could be the next thing. Just have it be, 6-episode miniseries, have it be with kind of set up the characters like Doctor Strange and Peggy Carter. And then it could just be like a fun mini series with like the alternate Avengers battling. It was like Ultron fused with Vision. I think that's what it was. At the end, but yeah, totally fine. Just have it be like self-contained 6-episode miniseries done. Don't really need a season 2. Just like a fun way to have like introduce these alternate versions, these characters, set up for kind of more of the multiverse storylines for the future. All right, and then for the kind of the next half of my version of Phase 4, would kind of get really into the multiverse stuff. Now the first half is more about like the characters, like the fallout from the characters from Endgame, and now we're really kind of getting to the multiverse storyline to kind of set up phases 5 and 6. So speaking of that, the first one that I would have is WandaVision. Wanda was one of the big characters from the previous phases. She had a lot going on with like losing Vision, losing him twice, essentially, and then, turning to dust and then blipping back and everything. So obviously she has a lot of emotion from that. I honestly wouldn't really change anything about the series. And so the only thing I would change is maybe just the ending, where Agatha would kind of be, instead of like them having a big CGI battle at the end, maybe, Agatha kind of tempts Wanda to join her, to expose her powers of like the Scarlet Witch, because maybe Wanda can have her arc of getting rid of West, or freeing Westview, freeing the people of Westview, and then bringing the shields down, and then Vision and her 2 boys, Billy and Tommy, disappearing, and then obviously she can fly away from that, but maybe Agatha can still be kind of like within the area, and then she's kind of calling out to Wanda, maybe like a psychic connection or something, like, hey, do you want your boys back, like and then Wanda's like, yeah, and then Agatha's like, well, it's like, hey, I know a way I can, I know a way that you can, I have this thing called the dark hold, and it can it's like dark magic, and you can pop in between different dimensions, and maybe you can find a dimension where your boys are there, and then that kind of entices Wanda, and then she's kind of brought to the dark side, and that can kind of set up the events for Doctor Strange 2, where Wanda's kind of like the tragic character of turning to this villain, and maybe all of episode 9, instead of being like this big action finale, could have been Agatha kind of being this dark mentor figure to Wanda, and having her transition from Wanda Maximoff into the Scarlet Witch officially, just so it's not like as jarring of a transformation from WandaVision to Doctor Strange 2. You can kind of see that transition of like how she became corrupted, and like why she's doing what she's doing, and then start introducing, planting the seeds of this whole multiverse idea. And at the same time, you can also introduce the idea of the Agatha Covenant of Chaos show, where like at the end of my version of WandaVision, after Wanda is kind of taken by the dark hold, Agatha can kind of spin off into her own series and kind of set that whole thing up, right? And then you can just go right into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where in my version it'd be a series, and then Wanda can be like one of the main antagonists of that series. Like maybe at the end of it, it can just be the ending that was in the movie where she sacrificed herself, but like as they're kind of hopping between different dimensions, as they're kind of like merging everything, maybe that's when you introduce the character of Kang. And then just when you thought like, oh, we finally defeated Scarlet Witch, it's like, oh no, now there's this new villain brewing, and maybe they can have like some kind of temporary fix for him, where like they send him to an alternate dimension, like a prison dimension or something, where Doctor Strange and Wong and America Chavez can talk about like, oh well, we defeated him for now, but I mean he's probably going to come back, and then kind of set up his appearance in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantum Mania, and then obviously in King Dynasty, and if he appears in Secret Wars. So I think that would have been a really cool. Just to also, again, like I said before, kind of expand on the ideas of the multiverse, expand on the ideas of the consequences of like messing with the multiverse and everything, and then that can kind of transition into Spider-Man No Way Home with like Wong's hesitation about Doctor Strange's ideas about like, oh well, maybe there's an alternate dimension where people don't know that you're Spider-Man, you can be safe and everything. So yeah, I think that would have been kind of cool, and it would have been a good kind of arc for Scarlet Witch's character, kind of expand her role a little bit more, kind of see more of her motivation, her trauma, and everything going forward. So yeah, I think that's where it kind of could have ended. And then you can just go right into Spider-Man No Way Home, where after this big multiverse conflict, they have like a somewhat of a peaceful resolution, and then maybe even like the beginning of like Spider-Man No Way Home, like Doctor Strange and Wong are like reeling from the events of for what happened before, like maybe more on like Wong's part. Maybe Doctor Strange's role is that like he was able to kind of fix this multiverse problem of like either them colliding into one another and like creating all this conflict. Maybe he has like this kind of pride about him, like the whole like third eye or something is affecting him or something like that. And maybe he's starting to have these dark tendencies, so to speak. So then when Peter Parker does come to Doctor Strange and talks to him about, is there like a multiverse? Is there like a dimension where I can be where no one knows that I'm Spider-Man and everything? Doctor Strange kind of had this arrogance about him, like this kind of like darkness to him. And then Wong's kind of like, oh, I don't know, you should be doing this. But then Doctor Strange's like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. And then we can kind of follow the events of No Way Home, but have a little bit more like multidimensional madness and have just more like the consequences of like having all these villains starting to appear, have these other Spider-Men appear, and this can kind of be like a resolution to all the events that happened in Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, or it can mostly be about we have to send these villains back to their own dimensions and everything, and like there's like these tears in our dimension, but everything's coming through and you can't stop them. So yeah, I think I love No Way Home. I wouldn't really change much about it, but I think if you had more kind of what I said before, kind of like more connective tissue between Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home, where there's more fallout from Multiverse of Madness. If you were to switch the releases, have more of the fallout from that into No Way Home, I think that could have just even elevated even more, and have more of an impact for like Peter Parker's character and for his friends and everything. So yeah, I mean but other than that, not really much I would change. Maybe just have more just multiverse of madness tie-ins here and there. And then we'll move on to Miss Marvel. Now that the whole kind of like big multiverse conflict was resolved, now we can kind of get into Miss Marvel. I would have had this earlier in my kind of hypothetical phase 4, but I know a lot of the events that'll set up the Marvels were kind of established in WandaVision with Monica Rambeau becoming Spectrum, getting powers and becoming one of the Marvels, and then her relationship with Carol Danvers, kind of her conflicting relationship with Carol Danvers, especially since Carol Danvers was friends with her mom, Maria Rambeau. So that's why I kind of put it at the end of the whole multiverse of madness kind of trilogy, my version of that. But yeah, I think now that all that kind of conflict is done, now that we can kind of go back into kind of normal, so to speak, so then we can reintroduce like new characters like Kamala Khan, and then have her whole story arc. Like I said before, this could have just been like a self-contained movie, like her origin, and then set up the events for the Marvels with the whole switcheroo where she's sent back to another dimension, and then Carol Danvers is sent to her dimension, and then kind of introduce a little bit of Monica Rambeau's character from her storyline from the end of WandaVision, and have that in here. But yeah, other than that, I wouldn't really change too much. Just have it be a movie and have it just be like her origin story / setup for the Marvels. And then we can just kind of wrap everything up with the Guardians of the Galaxy holiday special. I don't really think it matters where it's kind of placed within my hypothetical version, but I think, just having like a little like end cap, kind of like how Ant-Man came after Age of Ultron. This can kind of be just kind of like a kind of like a breather, kind of like Miss Marvel and Guardians Galaxy Holiday Special can be like kind of like the breather shows and or the breather movies and specials after this kind of like big multiverse climactic trilogy of films that happened, which I think, yeah, would be really, really cool. But yeah, not really much to say with Guardians. Again, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't really know how it ties in, but I know it's supposed to set up Guardians Galaxy Volume 3. So maybe the Star of Phase 5 could just be, Guardians Galaxy Volume 3, if I were to kind of continue this hypothetical rearranging of Phase 4 films. It can kind of be like a perfect transition into that one, where you kind of reintroduce the characters that were established in Endgame, and then kind of see where they left off and kind of where they're setting up where they're going, and then before you introduce all the new characters and stuff for Phases 5 and 6 for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. So yeah, I mean, again, I haven't seen it yet, so I don't really know how it's going to tie in, and I don't really know how I would change certain things, but I expect it to just be kind of like a fun, holiday special, not really too many things that kind of shake up the MC or anything. So I think, yeah, that would be kind of cool way to like wrap up everything. Well, I've been talking a lot longer than I thought about this, my hypothetical Marvel Phase 4, how it could have been. Definitely, I guess I had a lot more thoughts about it than I thought I would. But yeah, I'm glad that you're able to kind of stick with me as I with all my ramblings and everything. Yeah, this is actually kind of fun in a way to kind of talk about my thoughts on Marvel Phase 4 and where it's going and where I hope to see it go. But yeah, if you had any other thoughts on where you think Marvel Phase 4 should go, or your overall thoughts on Phase 4 in general, go ahead and like leave it in the comment section below. And be sure to give this video a like and subscribe for more videos. And yeah, if you like to see more of these kind of like talk to the camera, more of like these kind of discussion videos of me kind of taking on like a franchise, maybe I'll do like Star Wars next or something, if you guys want to see that, or what I think Phase 5 or 6 could be. Yeah, leave that in the comment section below as well. It's kind of like a big experiment for me. I never really kind of done anything like this. So yeah, let me know if you liked it. And yeah, if so, maybe I'll do more in the future. But other than that, thank you so much for watching and have a good rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. Bye.